you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The government shutdown is expected to extend into next week as Congress remains deadlocked on a funding plan. The Trump administration has begun significant layoffs at top agencies. Court filings reveal more than 4,000 layoff notices were given to employees. The president appeared to admit Friday to targeting Democratic-oriented staffers.
You know, they started this thing, so they should be Democrat-oriented. It'll be a lot, and we'll announce the numbers over the next couple of days, but it'll be a lot of people, all because of the Democrats.
Israel has pulled back its forces in accordance to a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Hamas has less than 72 hours to begin releasing Israeli hostages as part of the deal. Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees in Israel will also be freed. Thousands of Palestinians have begun walking from south of Gaza toward Gaza City Friday.
Finally, many of us will be able to see our loved ones. Anticipation that indeed, there's a better future waiting.
A deadly blast rocks an explosives plant in rural Tennessee. The facility manufactures and researches explosives for military and commercial industries. The explosion shook houses miles away. Officials say at least 19 people are missing and feared dead. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. And this week, the big deal is a halt to hostilities between Israel and Hamas, one that includes release of the remaining Israeli hostages, and it appears to be holding as President Trump prepares to head to Israel with a ceasefire taking effect in Gaza. Here in the U.S., one big deal you should know about is the deployment of federal agents and military personnel in Chicago and in Portland, despite the legal and political objections of the mayors and governors of those areas. On Thursday, a federal judge in Illinois issued a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration's deployment of National Guard troops in the Chicago area, calling the administration's claims of rampant lawlessness to be, quote, simply unreliable. On the same day, a 3-judge panel on the West Coast ruled that the administration will be able to continue deploying National Guard troops in Oregon over the wishes of local officials. As for the ongoing federal government shutdown, on Friday, the White House Budget Office said it has begun mass firings of federal workers, a move that might be in violation of federal law, signed during the first Trump administration, which prohibits firing federal workers during a shutdown. The standoff continues as Democrats continue to demand a renewal of federal subsidies of health care premiums, and Republicans refuse to bargain.
Donald Trump can find the time to play golf, but he can't be bothered negotiating a bipartisan agreement to reopen the government.
They are the ones politicizing this. They're trying to play a game. We're not engaging in a game. We're trying to get the government open again so that people can be served, and it's plain and simple.
Joining me now with more are two top political analysts. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio, and Rena Diamante is a political reporter for Spectrum News based in Washington, D.C. And Rena, let me start with you. Lawmakers themselves they are getting paid. They're not going to be personally affected by the shutdown, but a lot of their staff members for the senators and the representatives have officially missed one paycheck since the shutdown began, and they won't get paid. And then there's 1.3 million active duty service members who are on track to miss their first paycheck on Wednesday. Are there any signs you can see down there in Washington of lawmakers trying to work out a deal?
Well, there is a small group of more moderate lawmakers who are saying, why don't we come together and pass a bill that allows the military to be paid during a government shutdown. There's another group led in part by Congressman Mike Lawler of New York saying, why don't we extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is very much at the heart of this matter, this disagreement with Democrats and Republicans, to a year. But that so far hasn't made the leadership in Congress really budge. They remain entrenched in their views that there should be some discussion, some deals on health care to be added to a government funding fight, to a government funding bill. But Republicans say that debate should be separate. So we'll see if these missed paychecks will put the pressure on leaders in Washington to take some action.
Okay, and there's federal workers not just in Washington, but all around the country. And Curtis, what effects of the shutdown are you seeing in Ohio?
Well, that's almost changing moment by moment here with the recently announced layoffs in DHHS and also in Homeland Security. So more pain could be coming to federal workers in this state and elsewhere. As of now, we're seeing hundreds of federal workers in Ohio that have been placed on furlough. We're also seeing an impact with farmers, and that's especially important this time of year in this state because harvest is underway. A lot of farmers have taken out loans. They then submit their application to the Department of Agriculture to get those loans repaid. That's all been frozen. And that's happening against the backdrop of the impact of tariffs that are being affected here in Ohio when you're seeing farmers from this state unable right now to get their soybean crop to China, its leading customer. So we have all of these things sort of coming together to create a lot of uncertainty and anxiety that could potentially get worse.
Okay, and now, Marina, this week, a federal prosecutor took action against both former FBI Director James Comey and the sitting state attorney general of New York, Letitia James. They're both being charged criminally in separate cases, and in both cases were among the names of political opponents that President Trump cited in a memo directing the attorney general, Pam Bondi, to prosecute them. Normally, you find a crime and then try and discover who's behind it. They seem to be doing the opposite. How are Democrats reacting to these prosecutions?
Well, Democrats are saying that these prosecutions are entirely politically driven, and they're all aimed at trying to appease a president who is eager to go after individuals who investigated him and his financial dealings. Like Attorney General James, these Democrats are saying these allegations are baseless, and some, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, have said that this is grounds for malicious prosecution. They point to how the Trump administration, how President Trump handpicked an interim federal prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York to pursue these charges because career prosecutors there refused to do so.
Okay, and now, Curtis, meanwhile, the president's deployment of National Guard troops to U.S. cities has prompted a wave of lawsuits and court hearings. The governor of Illinois, Governor Pritzker, is warning that deploying troops in the streets of America actually crosses a critical line and that people everywhere should be concerned about that. Is that hype? Is that political hype, or should we really be worried at this point?
I think that when you consider what's been happening, there's some worry that's going across the aisle now. If you look at Governor Kevin Stitt in Oklahoma, for example, he is the chair of the National Governors Association. He has come out against the fact that troops are coming from elsewhere into Illinois without the governor's request, although he does support something being done in terms of being able to quell some of the concerns regarding crime in some of these major cities. The fact, though, that this is not being done cooperatively with states, that's affecting something that's very important to conservatives, and that's states' rights. So we're starting to see this have a bit more of a universal concern as it relates to some of the president's actions with National Guard troops.
Okay. Curtis and Rena, thank you so much for your insights. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about President Trump's relationship to Puerto Rico. That's next on The Big Deal.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Watching The Big Deal. If the island of Puerto Rico was a state, its 3.2 million residents would make it about the size of Iowa or Nevada. But it is not a state. It's a commonwealth with a single non-voting member of Congress, although Puerto Ricans are full American citizens. The island has experienced a near bankruptcy in recent years, with a special oversight board installed in 2016 to manage the island's finances. The big deal right now is that a federal judge has ruled that President Trump acted improperly by firing 3 of the 7 members of this fiscal oversight panel. The court ordered them returned to their post. Joining me now with more on all of this is Ibeth Bruzwal, a political anchor for Spectrum News 13, based in Orlando, Florida. Good to see you, Ibeth. And for those who may not be familiar with politics here, explain what this fiscal oversight board has been doing lately. The controversy, I think, now is related to the debt owed by the private energy company, right?
So much to talk about here. You know, I grew up in Puerto Rico. My family is still there. There is so much at stake because it is tied to the mainland no matter what. So let me answer your first question. The board was created basically to balance its checkbook, right? Basically dealing with so much crippling fiscal debt. It was a crisis called by many financial experts. It included billions of dollars in public debt. That has been reduced significantly in the last few years when it was first created. Also had to deal with the unfunded pension liabilities. That's a big sticking point that a lot of people don't talk about because it's very complicated. But basically the Financial Oversight and Management Board of Puerto Rico, created under the Puerto Rico Oversight Management and Economic Stability Act years ago, like we mentioned, 2016, consisted of multiple members appointed by then, right, President Barack Obama. And earlier this year in August, President Trump ordering some of those members, as you mentioned already, who leaned Democrat as far as I could see with most of those, were let go. So the Oversight Board will continue to work to fulfill the mandate of Promesa somehow in the interest of the people in Puerto Rico, but still dealing with a huge financial debt.
We can't talk about Puerto Rico these days without talking about Bad Bunny, the Puerto Rican megastar, who, like all Puerto Ricans, of course, is an American citizen. The NFL announced that he's going to be headlining next year's Super Bowl halftime show, which would make him the first male Latin artist to do so. That's history in the making. But he has been a vocal critic of President Trump's mass deportation campaign, and that has spurred a political backlash. Here's a little bit of what Trump had to say about the decision to hire Bad Bunny.
I never heard of him. I don't know who he is. I don't know why they're doing it. It's like crazy. And then they blame it on some promoter that they hired to pick up entertainment. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's always risky for politicians to try and take on entertainers, but who's going to win a fight between Donald Trump and Bad Bunny?
I don't know. Time will tell. Here's what I'm seeing, Errol, and I never thought I would be doing a show where you and I are talking about Bad Bunny, but here we are. I watch the Spanish language news on the island. I listen to the radio stations on the island because I still have a lot of family there. It's truly a mixed bag as to whether that will hurt the president's standings, because really, depending on the age of the person, I think in Puerto Rico, if you're younger, you're going to lean and like, yes, I want you to have Bad Bunny on that show. If you're possibly a little bit older, conservative, you're saying, you know what, hang on a second. Maybe that's not the best representation of the Puerto Rican community on stage, but there's no doubt about it. Anything he touches these days is gold.
And I guess more seriously, President Trump's relationship to the island has been a little bit murky. I think during the first term, he suggested actually selling the island. That's not possible. After Hurricane Maria in 2017, he delayed getting critical aid to the island. I know that was controversial. So far, how has his second administration's policies affected the island? We're only 10 months in, but maybe you have an assessment.
I'm shaking my head because the more that we talk about the serious topic, I'm still thinking about Bad Bunny. He was just on SNL, hugely successful, so many skits, all that stuff in Spanish. But back to the seriousness of this topic, here's the situation. We're seeing imagery like the governor of Puerto Rico, Jennifer Gonzalez, doing an event a couple days ago with her husband right next to her. He was wearing a white MAGA hat because their party that she belongs to leans heavily Republican. So you've got that in the backdrop. As everybody's talking about Bad Bunny, there's still a lot of positive energy coming out of Puerto Rico that sides with more of what the president has to talk about. And I want to say this, because you talked about at the beginning of the show, Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens by birth. That's like saying if somebody was born in California or in Iowa. But the reality is that there have been deportations recently like we've never seen before in Puerto Rico. We have a lot of Dominicans that work and call Puerto Rico home. And to see the images of people being plucked from their homes, plucked from their jobs that they've had for decades because of the deportations, it's a real reality check for Puerto Ricans as well.
Maybe we'll take a look at that in a future episode. Thank you very much. Great talking with you, Beth Bruswell.
You got it, Errol.
We're not done just yet. Coming up next, we will preview a special election that's underway in California that could have a major national impact. Stay with The Big Deal.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual.
When I come home late,
and a few generations.
you're always there.
And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
We are back with the big deal. Ballots were printed and mailed out this week in California as that state holds a special election that will have a national impact. The only question on the ballot in California is Proposition 50, which asks voters to weigh in on whether to approve new congressional district lines, which were specifically drawn to favor Democrats for the next 3 elections. The proposed new map is backed by the state's Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, and if approved by voters, could help Democrats win those 5 additional seats and perhaps control of the House of Representatives. The ballot question comes in response to a new map approved in Texas, where the Republican-led state legislature redrew that state's congressional districts to help their party pick up additional seats in Congress, all ahead of next year's midterms. What's unusual about all of this activity is that congressional lines are normally only redrawn once every 10 years following the census, but that seems to be changing. Spectrum News reporter Chase Beach takes a look at how redrawing district lines is playing out in a community near Los Angeles.
In 2008, Californians passed the Voters First Act to end gerrymandering, but now voters like Mark McLean want it to be brought back, at least temporarily.
It's not something I'm excited about, but in the face of everything going on nationally, it's what I think we have to do.
McLean is a member of the Riverside County Democratic Party. The group recently met up in Norco to watch a county registrar presentation on the November 4th special election.
To show you that it actually does take an army to do these elections.
McLean lives in the 41st District, currently represented by Congressman Ken Calvert, a Republican who has represented the Riverside area since 1992. If Prop 50 were to pass, the 41st District would shift and include a more Democratic-leaning area. It would likely flip the district and add another Democrat to the House of Representatives. McLean says he'd be happy to see new representation in Riverside.
I'm very disappointed in Ken Calvert because he just doesn't show up. I kind of call him the groundhog candidate because he only seems to show up like a month or 2 before the election.
So he and fellow Riverside Democrats say they're campaigning to support Prop 50. But other Riverside County voters like Michael Curry say pushing Congressman Ken Calvert out would be a mistake. Curry is the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Riverside.
Somebody like Ken Calvert has provided a voice for common sense and almost a moderate voice here in California that we don't see from our other politicians coming in.
He says he's worried that if Riverside County is redistricted, local concerns like infrastructure will be overlooked. Curry says he'd rather see spending on local roads than on projects like high-speed rail, and he trusts Republican representatives like Ken Calvert to advocate for him in D.C.
Taking away people's voice, we're taking away their ability to have a say in how they're represented.
But back in Norco, McLean says he believes passing Prop 50 will help his voice be represented in Washington, as other states like Texas move to gerrymander in favor of Republicans.
It doesn't make sense for us to stand down and play nice while other states are taking advantage of that.
The choice now in the hands of California voters.
Joining me now with more on Proposition 50 is Errol Wessler, an anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Southern California. Great to have you here, Errol. And now we think of California as a blue state. They haven't voted for a Republican president since George H.W. Bush, and this is back in the 1980s. Yeah. But the latest poll shows that barely a majority, I think 51% of Californians favor this redistricting. Is the idea that maybe voters are not comfortable with giving the Democrats even more power?
Yeah,
it's a fair question, Errol. A new Emerson College poll of California voters finds, as you mentioned, 51% favor Prop 50, 34% plan to vote no, and 15% are undecided. But the question is, who are these voters? Well, support for Prop 50 is strongest among more educated voters, so we're talking about those with college or postgraduate degrees. And you've got former Republican California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger campaigning against Prop 50. But when voters were asked if his opposition affected their support, 2/3 said it really didn't make a difference. But what stood out to me is that if you look at California voters overall, regardless of how they plan to vote, 51% thought and said in this poll that Prop 50 was a good idea, and 49% thought it was a bad idea. So a very tight margin in that poll.
Very interesting. So now I know millions of dollars are being poured into this. It's a great big political fight. And there's a key voting bloc, Latinos, that I think both parties are going to probably both go after. What is that looking like?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, California's got a sizable Latino population, and interestingly, both sides are basically using the same messaging through ads to tell some very different stories about who's abusing their power. So the Yes on 50 camp points to President Donald Trump's immigration policies. They are running English and Spanish language ads featuring images of the ICE raids and showing U.S. Senator Alex Padilla of California recounting getting tackled by federal agents. Meanwhile, No on 50 claims that elected officials are trying to rewrite the state constitution to give politicians more power. Both sides also addressing affordability, a huge issue across the country and in California for Latino voters as well. The No on 50 camp accusing some politicians of spending $280 million on this special election, money they say could be better spent elsewhere. And you've got the Yes campaign blaming President Trump's trade policy and tariffs for driving up prices after he promised to cut costs.
Okay, so let's zoom out and look at this at a national level. Right now, if we assume this passes, there's 5 seats that'll be Democratic for California. That would cancel out Texas's 5 seats. Here's a look at the map where there are more gerrymandering efforts underway. You've got Republicans in Missouri who are following Texas's footsteps. They've got a new congressional map that will help them win an estimated 1 more Republican seat next year. 5 other Republican-led states are also considering new maps. 3 Democratic-led states are also considering all of this. I mean, I want to emphasize just how unprecedented all of this is. Normally, we redraw the maps and leave them for 10 years. Are we on the verge of seeing maps constantly redrawn, like every few years in almost every state?
It certainly seems that way. You see all the colors on that map there. The stakes are high here. Look, Democrats only need 3 seats to take control away from Republicans who are trying to buck the longtime trend of the president's party losing seats in the midterm elections. And you mentioned Missouri. The Republican-led legislature there passed new U.S. House districts aimed at helping Republicans win 7 of that state's 8 districts, so that's 1 more than they currently hold. President Trump has also been pressuring Republicans in Indiana to draw House districts there. Ohio and Utah, as you saw on the map, could also have some new congressional maps. And then you've also got Republicans in Florida and Kansas, as well as Democrats in Maryland and New York looking at some mid-decade redistricting. So it'll be very interesting, Errol, to see how this all kind of plays out.
Okay, we'll have a lot to report on.
Sure.
Thanks very much, Errol Wessler. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Stay tuned to your local station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill, and with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your